everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Jewelry District. I'm Victoria Gomelsky, Editor-In-Chief of JCK and JCKOnline.com, here at One World Trade Center at our wonderful recording studio. And I'm with
Rob Bates, News Director of JCK and JCKOnline.com. Also at this wonderful, kind of cramped, but very cozy. We'll say cozy recording studio at One World Trade Center.
We're elbow to elbow,
yes,
quite literally.
It's very exciting. This is our second video podcast, so...
And we're absolutely thrilled to have a woman that I've admired for many, many years since I met her. And I imagine it was about the year you joined GIA. Of course, that hasn't given it away already, it's Susan Jacques, President and CEO of the Gemmological Institute of America, based in Carlsbad. Joined in 2013, so this would mark almost, 12 years now?
Going on my 12th year. Very exciting.
Thank you for joining us. We're here in New York. It's a busy week. You arrived, we're taping on a Thursday. You said you arrived on Tuesday?
Tuesday night came in. Easy flight from San Diego nonstop.
How many of these have you done now, these jewelry weeks that happen? And they used to be, of course, in January. Now they're in March. Does this feel like just your year must be marked by these kinds of events, right?
There are many events throughout the year. I have been coming to this event for decades. So
when you were at Borsheim's, of course.
First at Borsheim's and now with GIA. So it's great. It's a wonderful opportunity to get together with friends and colleagues in the industry, see people, get to hear how things went during the holiday season, how the year's beginning. And it's always a great reset for us all, I think.
I agree. And I like that it's March because it's gorgeous outside. It's not
nice.
As January is a little dicey.
A lot dicey.
A lot dicey. Well, so we always start out, and I know you have a background that is pretty different than most people here in this industry, certainly in the American industry. Tell us about where you're from, where you grew up, and how you found your way to jewelry.
I feel I've told the story so many times. I'm hopefully not boring people too badly. But,
Never.
Born and raised in what was Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. And my mother was Australian, my father was British. They moved there from southern India in the late 1950s. My sister was born in India. I and my youngest sister were born in Zimbabwe and born and raised. And
so how did you... Why did your parents live in Rhodesia?
Yeah, what brought them there?
I think they loved the climate. The climate is very akin to the climate where I live today in San Diego. And again, I think there were great opportunities in Africa at that time. My parents started their own timber business. My father was in the timber business in southern India. And so they were just looking for somewhere new to move their newly growing family to. And so when I left high school, I did not know what I wanted to do. I had actually no idea. And so my mother said I didn't have to go to college, but I had to go to the local polytechnic, the local...
and that was in the capital city? Is it?
In Harare, where we were raised, to take a secretarial course.
Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, is very different then than it is now.
Very different, obviously. 1980 received independence, and so I was there during the colonial rule. And as I will say, it was independence. The UDI came about in 1966, so we lived through a fairly tumultuous time growing up. But the most wonderful people and the most beautiful country. And so I'm very proud to say I'm from Zimbabwe. And I will say that the lifestyle, the weather, you never thought about anything. You opened windows or you closed windows, and you had sunshine and beautiful weather almost all the time and wonderful people.
And have you been back?
Mm-hmm. I used to go back every other year when my parents were both still living.
And so they stayed there. They never moved.
They did not move. And
wow,
so they
really liked it there. And was there a lot of expats there?
Lots of expats. And again, I think there was a very politically charged during much of the time with the desire for independence, which I fully supported, and grateful that in April of 1980, independence came about. And so, again, beautiful country, beautiful people, challenging politics sometimes.
And so you're being presented with this opportunity, I guess, to go to a polytechnic school. What was that like? And was that prior to independence? That was in the 70s, or
That was, it was in the 70s. Sorry, aging myself here. My best friend and I both decided we were going to go do this. And so we took shorthand and secretarial and basic accounting and did a year of that. And it just so happened I wanted to be a flight attendant. And I applied at Air Rhodesia, as it was at the time. And I also was applying for other jobs. And the first job offer that came to me was from Scottish Jewellers, which was the largest jewelry company in Zimbabwe. And they did manufacturing, exported to South Africa, had 7 retail stores. And I was going to be a junior typist. And so I took the position. And that was my entree into this incredible industry that I've been so blessed to be a part of.
And how'd you get from a Zimbabwe jeweler, which is it still around? I don't know if it's still around.
Not today, I don't believe.
Okay. So how'd you get from a Zimbabwe jeweler to Omaha?
for Borsheim's?
There's a long meandering path. I think we all think we know the direction our life is going to take and that roadmap we're going to follow. And I think we quickly realize it has a lot of detours. It has a lot of branches that we sometimes wander down and wonderful things happen. So I worked at Scottish Jewellers as a junior typist for a while, and then the political situation was heating up. My father had his 3 daughters and my best friend. We moved to England for a year. And when I came back, I went back to Scottish Jewellers, and they were looking for somebody in the marketing department. So, sure, knew nothing about marketing, but decided I would take that role. And so I rejoined Scottish Jewellers. And my boss at the time, Peter Winhall, and we're still occasionally in touch with one another.
I love that.
Was studying the GIA correspondence courses. And I started learning from him. What an incredible opportunity to learn about this industry GIA presented. And so I was a little more impatient. I didn't want to do correspondence courses where you filled out the paperwork, sent it back. 6 weeks later, you got your next course. And so I begged my parents to send me to the in-residence program. And so in June of 1980, right after independence, is when my course began. And actually, the owner of Scottish Jewellers' daughter came with me, Lynn Chalmers. Sharon came with me. She was a colleague. Another colleague, Daryl, joined.
To Santa Monica?
The 5 of us from Zimbabwe came.
Oh,
I think we're the largest Zimbabwean contingent at GIA ever in the history of the Institute. And so we studied the 6 months program in Santa Monica.
Wow.
And I would assume it's a very different program than what you do now.
Obviously, it's changed dramatically,
Yes.
but I will say, as I meet alums around the world, I hear from them much the same thoughts that I had. This is life-changing. This has altered the trajectory of my career. It infused so much enthusiasm and passion in me for GEMS materials, and I was so fortunate because my colored stone instructor was a gentleman called Bill Boyajian. And
Wow.
Bill Boyajian went on to be the president for 20 years at GIA. And Bill became my mentor. And I was so fortunate to have someone so passionate about this that could infuse that into the students that he was teaching.
You said you've told this story or versions of it, and I feel like I'm learning it for the first time. So you must tell it in a new way each time. That's incredible. I didn't know Bill was, and Bill, of course, a celebrated figure, continues to be, has his own consultancy now. But wow, so much full circle going on here.
Exactly.
I had no idea.
And from that point, I guess you wanted to continue in jewelry. Was there any kind of part of the industry that really interested you and excited you? And
So I went to work for a very small grading lab called USGSI that was run by a former instructor of GIA, Sarah Beth Cady, in Santa Ana, California. And I wanted to get practical experience for a lot of what I had just learned at GIA. And at that time, there was a booming certification business in colored stones in particular that USGSI was fulfilling. And worked there for a year and a half until, unfortunately, the market tanked in 1982. And we were cut from a 5-day week to a 4-day week. I happened to be taking the Gemological Association of Great Britain exams at the time, the FGA, so I had more study time. And then they cut us to a 3-day week because things had really taken a downturn. I had just bought my first new car, and my new car had a 22% interest rate.
Oh, Okay, this puts a lot of things in perspective.
It does.
Incredible.
And so
22%.
And so I could no longer afford my apartment, my wonderful apartment, and my car. And I was on the phone one day with a friend, a classmate of mine from GIA. His name was Alan Friedman, and he was in Omaha, Nebraska. His family owned Borsheim's. And Alan said to me, come and work at Borsheim's. And I said, living in Southern California and Omaha, Nebraska was not on my life plan. It wasn't a direction that I thought my life would ever take. And I'm a believer that you can set your mind to anything for 1 year. And so I said, I'll come for 1 year, get some retail experience, and I'm heading right back to California. And I stayed 31 years.
So, and that was before Borsheim's was purchased by Berkshire Hathaway, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember, like, what got that? Because it's a different kind of business than he usually invests in, right? It's just a smaller retailer.
Yes.
Was it just because he was in Omaha, or like, do you remember what kind of attracted him to the business, and how did it change when he took it over?
So I went to work for the Friedman family, and Ike Friedman was a dynamo retailer, really a remarkable man. And I was fortunate to understudy under him with Alan and a brother-in-law, Marvin Cohn, for 9 years. And in 1989, so I moved there in August of 82. 89 is when Warren Buffett, in February, purchased the company. So in 86, Warren Buffett bought the Nebraska Furniture Mart, a very important retailer in the Midwest on furniture. The Nebraska Furniture Mart was founded by a Russian immigrant, Mrs. Blumpkin. So Mrs. Blumpkin's younger sister was Mrs. Friedman, Mrs. F. And the Friedmans had been a part of the Nebraska Furniture Mart, and then when they were getting too many family members, they bought Borsheim's, an existing jewelry company in Omaha that had been in existence since 1870. And so Warren bought the Mart, and then he liked what he had found there and had a conversation with the Friedman family and liked what he saw as a business that would continue to be successful well into the future. So he buys what he likes, and he bought Borsheim's, and we were ever so grateful that he did.
And did it help that it was kind of local to him?
Very
right?
definitely.
Yeah.
Very, very definitely.
And did the business change a lot after he came in?
I think one of the biggest changes that came about was definitely this exposure to a global clientele, that as the shareholder meetings grew in prominence and importance, tens of thousands of people at the beginning of May flood into Omaha, Nebraska.
And they would have events at Borsheim's, right?
We had glorious events at Borsheim's.
And he used to sell, I think.
He did.
Yes.
I had
Literally
to
behind the counter.
I made him up a name tag that said, Crazy Warren, *1 sales associate. That was at his request. And it was a remarkable experience. On the Sunday afternoon, we had a shareholder-only event, and Warren would come behind the counter with me, and we would wait on customers, and it was fun. I mean, I remember one time a gentleman was literally, we were 3 deep with customers in the center Lux Salon, as we referred to it, in the middle of the store, and this gentleman doing this to me with his American Express card, holding it out to me over the heads of others, and he said, I want to buy something.
It's like a retailer's dream.
Desperate. Oh my
And
God.
I said, we'll get to you in just a minute. And one of our sales associates had just finished. And I said, take care of this gentleman. And literally, they must have been back in 2 minutes with a $10,000 diamond tennis bracelet. Nice. And he wanted it purchased, and because he was buying it from Warren. Wow. And so it was a very unique, very fun-filled. We got to meet incredible people from around the world, icons of business, politics, great opportunity that we would not have had otherwise.
And, you know, we hear a lot about Warren. What was your experience with him? What's he like?
So I was fortunate. The unfortunate thing that happened was Ike Friedman was diagnosed with lung cancer in March of 91 and passed away in September. A very sudden demise, and really shocking for us as a company, this legendary patriarch. Alan chose to leave the company at that time and move to Los Angeles, and Ike's son-in-law, Donald Yale, stepped in. He was an accountant. He ran the company for a couple of years. He had a family situation occur where he needed to step down, and Warren called me one day and asked me to come down to the office. And I had met him once or twice in the store. I didn't know him at all. And he offered me the position as president and CEO. And I was 34 years old. I'd never gone to college, and I spent the next half an hour trying to tell him this was a really big mistake.
And what was your position before that?
At that time, I was the vice president of merchandise. So I had gone from sales and appraising into buying, and really actively involved in buying from the mid-1980s.
And he had heard about you, or
he
just
obviously saw something in
I
you.
think
What
he
was
spoke.
it?
I think he spoke to some of the people at the store, clients, is likely, and he just said, "I'm willing to take a bet. I think you can do it." And I said, "Okay." And I said, on one condition, I can go back to doing what I do now if it doesn't work out, because I love what I do. And I was CEO for 20 years, reporting directly to Warren.
Famous last words yet again.
And what's it like reporting to him?
You know, there were so many of us reporting to him at that time. There were people he spoke to daily. There were people he spoke to once a month. There were people he spoke to once a year. I think the most important thing I think I learned from Warren, and I asked him in the interview, and I was blown away. I was shell-shocked, quite frankly. And I said, "What is the one piece of advice that you can give me to be successful in my role?" And he said, and it's a famous quote that he's known for, and the people at Borsheims and the people at GIA know it well because I recite it all the time, and that is, "Do not say or do anything you don't want to read about on the front page of tomorrow's newspaper, written by a friendly, an intelligent but unfriendly reporter to be read by your family and your friends and your clients and your colleagues." And it is just this magical piece of advice, because he said it takes us decades to build our reputation and it takes us minutes to lose it. And I think that's been my mantra throughout my career, has been never say or do anything that will bring disrepute. And as the CEO at Borsheims for 20 years, I was so fortunate, but I had to worry constantly about my personal reputation, the reputation of Borsheims, the reputation of Warren Buffett, and the reputation of Berkshire Hathaway. And so everything you did or said, you had to keep those things in mind. And the same thing with GIA. GIA is so fortunate to have this extraordinarily high integrity, trusted reputation. And so everything we do with great consideration to making sure that we do nothing to damage that reputation that we've built over 94 years.
Well, tell us, so you were at Borsheims, you said, for 31 years?
31 years.
And
20
then
years.
in the summer of 2013, you became interim president of GIA, or president and CEO of GIA. So you'd already been a board member.
Yeah, I joined the board in 1996. Bill Boyajian was the president at the time, and they were looking for some diversity on the board. There were a lot of, no disrespect here, white AGS retail males on the board.
Well, I'm not an AGS retailer.
No, but I don't mean to categorize, but there wasn't a lot of diversity. Right. And so Bill was doing an awesome job bringing people in, Nancy Brewer, Helene Fortunoff, Anna Martin, Dion Kenyon. I mean, there have been so many extraordinary women that were brought onto that GIA board, and I was fortunate. It was 2 years into my CEO role at Borsheims, and I learned so much about GIA, far more than I obviously knew as a student or as a retailer, about the integrity of the product, the mission of our institute, the fact that we are there purely for consumer confidence. And so I was chair of the board in 2013 when there was a change in strategy, and we decided that Donna Baker chose to leave the organization, and the board asked me to step in as the interim CEO.
And you were there as a representative of the retail sector. How did you help GIA kind of understand what goes on at retail?
So I think we've recently done an interesting exercise with our board last November in our board meeting. We had an intense strategy session, and the most important thing to determine when you're trying to devise your strategy is who is your customer? And so we went through an exercise with our board on who is our primary customer. And what we landed on, and we believe very strongly, it is the retailer. And the reason is because our mission is to ensure consumer confidence in gems and jewelry. But we don't have that ability to outreach directly to the consumers in such a way, and yet so many retailers are advocates of GIA, alumni of GIA, believe very much in the mission and the importance of what we do. And they literally, I've always said that probably the most important person in the supply chain in the gem and jewelry industry is the sales associate standing at the counter 18 inches at the end of that supply chain. They are the one interacting with the consumer. They are the one influencing that sale. And I think with education being the founding stone of GIA back in 1931, the Shipleys wanted to professionalize the industry. They wanted to bring integrity and ethics to the industry. And we have not deviated from that at all. And our sister organization, AGS, was founded 3 years later as the guild organization to which these newly educated professionals could belong. And so I think that identifying the retailer as such an important customer doesn't mean we negate the direct customers we have who are primarily diamond manufacturers. And it doesn't negate the importance of the consumer, but it is the conduit for which we can most successfully conduct our mission business.
So we have lots of questions, sort of industry-related questions, but I do want to ask, you're retiring this year. Tell us about that decision.
So some of you may know, some of you may not know. I was very blessed. I have 3 beautiful sons. And my last son was blessed to my husband and I later in life. And I had told the board several years ago, when our son graduates high school, which he's doing in June, I will retire that year because I have family around the world. My 2 sisters live in England. I have nieces and nephews in Singapore and Chiang Mai. My mother was Australian. My father was British. I have family around the world, friends still in Zimbabwe, South Africa. And I want to spend more time with them. And I really want to travel and not be adding a weekend to a business trip to see them for 2 days. There's some passions I have that I'd love to do more volunteering. I'd love to be able to spend some of my time just pursuing some of the things that I've always wanted to do and never really found as much time to do as I would like. So grateful, though, for the extraordinary opportunities I've been given and the exceptional people I've had the privilege of working with in this remarkable industry.
Great reason too.
And any news on when a successor will be chosen?
So we made the announcement early because we wanted people to be aware that the position was opening up, and that way people who might wish to apply could apply. We have internal and external candidates going through the interviewing process right now. We hired Korn Ferry, a very important global recruiting firm who are doing the search for us, and a search committee of our board is working on it. So hoping to probably mid-year have some idea of who the next person will be, and then I'd love to travel to each of our locations around the world. We have 11 labs around the world. We have 7 schools. We have 5 research centers, and go and say goodbye to each of our 3,100 colleagues, as well as introduce them to the new CEO.
What are you going to miss most about this position you've held for 12 years now, or will be?
I am passionate about this industry, and what I've told so many people I've had conversations with lately is I'm a phone call away. Truly, I don't see myself totally disconnecting, and never, ever. I will still get the JCK News Daily.
All right.
I will get other...
Oh, yeah.
I will stay connected. I have so many friends in the industry, as well as incredible colleagues. And I hope, I've been able to have an influence on people in some respect. And so I think that what I will miss most is just the excitement and joy of being a part of an industry that is purely emotional. And that has been a great blessing.
Do you expect to keep going to events like 24 Karat and AGS?
I am a 24 Karat New York member. I hope to continue to come to the events. I look forward to going to the Tucson Gem Show next year in a very different capacity and doing all the tent shows. I never really get much time to go see the fossilized dinosaur bone and all those things that I am passionate about. I look to not disappear off the face of the planet, I hope.
Great.
Well, it sounds like when you visit family, you might hit up some of the. You'll be passing through Bangkok to see. You have family in Chiang Mai. Yeah. That's so cool.
I have a nephew with 3 young children I've never met, so I'm looking forward to going and meeting them.
And are you going to take your son or one or all 3 of them?
We may, depending on where they are in their lives.
Yeah, I guess they're off on their own or just about.
So you were on the board of GIA.
Yes.
Then you took it over.
I'm still on the board.
Yeah, you're still on the board. Okay. How was it? Was that very different when you went from a board member to a staffer? And what did you kind of learn about the organization? What do you think perhaps people don't necessarily know about the organization?
I think at the board level, you're obviously strategically guiding as opposed to operationally ensuring the success of the organization. And I think what you look at is a view from 30,000 feet. So you're getting you're getting an overview of exactly, I think when you land in the organization, the complexity of the organization, I think, was one of the things that
how many people work there now?
3,100.
Wow.
So we have 3,100. We were down from a larger number a few years ago. But I will say that it's the passion and commitment of every one of those individuals that ensures that we fulfill our mission every day. And so what I think was most the importance of each of the 4 legs of our stool. So understanding that research that we fund through our endowment to the tune of tens of millions of dollars of every single year is so vitally important to the consumer confidence in gems and jewelry. The vast majority of the gem and jewelry industry is equally as passionate and ethical and with high integrity as we at GIA. There are unfortunately some nefarious characters that greed is their motivator and ours is an industry purely founded on consumer trust. And so learning the intricacies of the work that we do in research and how critical that is. And there is probably no other organization in the industry today that has committed the dollars, the talent. We have 22 PhDs. We have another probably 30 people that work daily in research for us. It's a large team, but it is so important because we are constantly uncovering things that people are trying to do that would take advantage of consumers. I think the widespread education that we provide and how we've modernized that and remained relevant with things we're offering creates this army of advocates in alumni and really having that opportunity as CEO to interact with them around the world. You know, we have almost 60 chapters around the world today, and new chapters. We just opened our first Thailand chapter coming just a month ago. I think the education, the laboratory services, what are we constantly going to do differently to provide the service that our clients need? And then instrument development, both for internally for use in our labs, but also the GIA ID100, for example, when lab-grown diamonds and natural became such a challenge in the industry. We were able to produce a desktop device that helped people separate those from one another, and it brought assurance. It brought consumer confidence.
So a couple years ago, GIA decided to grade lab-grown diamonds. Can you some people still are upset about that, as you may know. Can you walk us through that decision, why you thought that was important?
So we started grading lab-grown diamonds, as we referred to them, synthetic diamonds at the time, more than 15 years ago, long before they were commercially available. Now, we've been involved in the research and work around synthetic diamonds since we were approached by GE in the 1950s and started doing work on it. So we've got a very long history, Part of the reason originally we decided to do it was because the more we see of a product, the more we can learn about a product. And so a lot of it was, again, our mission is to protect consumers, the public trust in gems and jewelry. It is not natural diamonds. It's not colored stones. It's not pearls. It's not synthetic rubies or synthetic. It's gems and jewelry. And lab-grown does fall into that category of protecting consumers. I think there's been so much in the last disruption in the last 3 years with the introduction, with retailers' adoption and acceptance, consumers' adoption. And I think the landscape has changed dramatically. I think our wish for lab-grown diamonds and natural diamonds in today's marketplace is that the sellers of that product quit referring to them as being the same. And we often hear GIA has said they're the same. What GIA has stated is that optically, physically, and chemically, they are the same. They are a diamond. And that's where the sameness ends. The fact that one is produced in factories around China or India, 80% of those using coal fuel, not necessarily as environmentally friendly and sustainable as was originally stated to be. The fact of the matter that I just heard the number yesterday, that 60 million carats of lab-grown diamonds were produced last year, and 23 million carats of natural diamonds by De Beers last year, gives you some idea of the scale of production right now. What's happened then is you have this precipitous fall in price off a cliff, like a waterfall, quite frankly.
I heard 90 to 95% the other day from about a decade ago, decline in value, wholesale value.
So the number I heard this week is that the production cost today is around $12 a carat.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Per rough carat.
So if you are looking at the wholesale price today is usually south of $100 a carat. That is not the same as a natural diamond that is rare and comes in a continuum of color, continuum of clarity. What's happening today is 80% of all the lab-grown diamonds, most lab-grown diamonds are, they've grown HPHT as well as CVD. The CVD stones, 80% of them are decolorized. So to use less energy, you grow them faster. They grow with a brownish color, and then they are decolorized. In the natural diamond world, that HPHT treatment has to be disclosed. And so there is this band that we're seeing, and we are less than 5% of the market in grading for lab-grown diamonds. The band we are only seeing is DEF color and VVS or better. So the recipe is being produced to the rarest of natural stones, color and clarity, and they are being produced in such abundant numbers that the market acceptance is much lower than that. So the challenge we have today in the lab-grown, I believe there's a space for lab-grown, definitely. I think it's a great-looking product compared to some of the very low-end quality natural diamonds that used to be used. However, it's that fact that consumers need to understand that there is not an intrinsic value and there is not rarity to these gemstones. And the fact of the matter is at these prices, certification doesn't really make sense any longer. And so I think it's a technology product. It's innovative. It's been disruptive. But as long as consumers understand what it is they're buying. Somebody just sent me a picture this morning of a website that has a 3-carat round for $535.
It's mind-blowing emoji.
Yeah.
Insert.
But many retailers are still selling them in high thousands of dollars. And even if they're saying we won't take this in trade, there's no cash value back on it, it's very difficult that they're going to remember that 3 years later when they've spent $10,000 and walk back in expecting some value, and there is none. I think it's a consumer confidence crisis that we as an industry can be facing.
2 quick questions because we're running out of time. Do you think there will ever be kind of an easy, inexpensive diamond tester, which a lot of people want as far as natural and lab-grown? And do you ever see the possibility of lab-grown diamonds that really can't be distinguished even by your lab?
Quick answer, no and no. And the reason is current technology, we do not believe allows the growth. The growth is very different. So you have to remember that a natural diamond's growth is very uniquely different than the growth of a lab-grown. At this moment in time, every single lab-grown diamond is, for us at GIA, identifiable. Even those that they are trying to mask the treatments, that they are doing many things now, they constantly look at what we are probably using as identifying characteristics, and they're trying to mask those. That's not good for this industry. At this moment in time, absolutely, clearly distinguishable. The inexpensive device, we would love to be able to come up with that. But what we're trying to look for is so challenging scientifically that the likelihood that there can be an instrument for a couple of $100 is not there at this time. Could technology in the future possibly allow that? My mandate to our research team when we were building the GIA ID100, as I said, you have to get an instrument that costs right around $5,000. And they were able to do it, and it's a remarkable instrument, and it is probably one of the most accurate in the marketplace today. But a $200, $300 sit on your desk, not at this time. We are constantly looking and developing and trying to find more affordable ways for people to make sure that consumers have the confidence in the product that we sell.
Okay.
Wow. Any parting words for the industry, for your colleagues, for us?
And you want to give a little plug for Converge.
Converge, of course.
Converge, yes.
We did say we'd come back to that quickly.
Yes.
And then any parting words?
So AGS and GIA, for the first time ever, are coming together for Converge in Carlsbad. We're excited to showcase both our campus. It'll be at the Omni in Carlsbad on the 7th through the 10th of September of this year. We have a Harvard Business School track of education. We have a retailer track, very focused similarly to the AGS Conclave. And then we have our incredible research track as well. Very excited. With the opportunity to bring together people from around the world to come and learn and network with one another. I'm a very big believer that the best days of this industry are still ahead of us. I think people need to adapt to change. I'm very optimistic, always have been, will continue to be. I see rainbows where others see dark clouds. I think that the most important thing is ensuring consumer confidence. Without consumer confidence, we are our own worst enemy. So what do we do together as an industry to come together as an industry, collaborate and work together to bolster consumer confidence through the actions, integrity, honesty, trustworthiness of the work that each of us do?
Amen.
All right, well, thanks.
Susan, thank you so much. What an honor. It's such an honor to have you. Thank you.
Honor to be asked, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.